Hello and welcome to episode 205 of the Note Coach podcast. Life is a four-letter word. I'm your host, Suzanne Culberg. It has been an action-packed couple of days for this introvert. Nominally, I could do one event a month and I would be complete. Though these last 3 days, I went to a magic show with my kids. I did a burlesque performance. And today I've just gotten home from my son's, they call it the K2 Fun Day. It's a sports carnival. I don't know who called it a fun day. But in all seriousness, it was pretty good. But to me, fun and running in the same sentence, it's a bit of a stretch. So I'll start with the burlesque performance because, life is a four-letter word. It's one we don't talk about very much. I do burlesque with a lady called Khalida Malouf. She's been on this show. I think she's been on this show 6 times. So if you haven't yet listened to her episodes, go check them out. She's fabulous. And she runs a course called Burlesque from the Inside Out. And it's in person and Zoom. I do the Zoom variations. And it's absolutely amazing. It's not like you'd think if you have an association with burlesque. It's funny, when I first came across Khalida's work, I was like, I'd never do that. And then based on my prior associations with the term burlesque, and then when I went to a class and experienced it for myself, I was like, oh, I'll do it like that. Kind of like the whole K2 Fun Day. Like normally I'd think athletics carnival, pass. But, the way my kids' school does it, it actually is a fun day. So how much of things do we prejudge or have prior associations with based on the term? Like I did this latest burlesque act I've created. I think this was my 5th. I didn't actually remove 1 stitch of clothing, but there's seeing people in whole different levels. So anyway, I did that act, and then there is the pieces that you practiced and the choreography and to the music, and there's what I had planned to do, and there's what I did on the day, which were 2 very different things. And I think that's something about being present with yourself and what's going on for you. And that's why I love Khalida's approach to burlesque, setting intentions, embodying those intentions, and allowing whatever's coming up for you in that day to move through you. It's not so much a performance as it's a remembrance, I suppose, or a becoming. And allowing yourself to be seen and witnessed by others allows them to touch that feeling or that expression in themselves as well. And it has me thinking, how often do we separate ourselves from what we're thinking and feeling to experience something in a way that is expected of us? And it was funny today, jumping between the burlesque show and the school carnival, and they had this 4-way tug of war race. It was funny. But there was one cohort or group that the kids didn't do it, the parents did. And I was like, man, I wish I was with that class. I almost went and jumped in. Perhaps I should have. But it was like, instead of the kids doing it and the parents watching, the parents did the tug of war. And it was the best. And I think, life's a 4-letter word. Life's for living. What do we get to experience? What do we want to get to the end of the day and say that we got to enjoy and be present with, rather than just going through the motions? It was so wonderful, the school carnival today, to have so many activities that were not what I normally would expect with the athletics carnival. They had the 4-way tug of war. They had Connect 4, but with basketballs, and you had to throw the basketballs in. They had this, the big lawn Jenga, and stacking of buckets. And it was funny, Casimir, my son, is very literal thinking. It's like, we need to work together as a team and we need to do this. And some people are just really rushed and They did have some traditional stuff as well, like the sprinting races and things that you'd normally expect at a athletes carnival, javelin. But then they had, the sack race and the egg and spoon. Oh, I buried the lead. The funniest things, those fit balls that bounce on. Side note, I used to teach fitball back in my aerobics instructor days. I'd teach a class on a fitball. That's that's a story for another day. But they had what I could only describe as like a peanut. It was kind of like what would have been two fitballs melded together into a peanut shape, but they had handles on top. And the boy that my son was paired with, because it was a two-person ride, he was so short that his feet couldn't touch the ground, so he couldn't bounce. So here is my son bouncing for all he's worth and like dragging this kid along who's just holding on for all he's worth. I have never been so entertained. It was hilarious. He tried so hard. They both tried, but like if you can't touch the ground, then it's very hard for you to participate in the race. And then the other thing, life is a four-letter word. We went to this magic show that they started in Sydney, and I believe they're on a world tour now, called the Metaverse of Magic. And they had their own like Wi-Fi. It wasn't an app, it was a QR code, and the audience connect with it so you could play and be part of the show. So we all hooked in. I went with my husband and my two kids. My son was like, he didn't really want to play, so him and I teamed up. So it was Casimir and I on one team, then Jeremy, and then Xanthi. And each round, like after each round, they put the top 20 people in the room on the board, in the leaderboard. And Xanthi, my daughter, she ended up finishing overall 7th in the entire room when there's hundreds of people at this magic show. Jeremy, my husband, finished 33rd, and we won't talk about my 146th place finish. But where this got me thinking about life being a four-letter word, at the end of the show, Xanthi was beside herself. Oh, I was 7th. I was so close to winning. And she was just so fixated on finishing 7th and how, could she have done better? And Casimir and I, with our, not disrespectable 146th place finish, the awe and the wonder and the literal magic of being there in a magic show, it didn't matter where we finished. Like, it would have been nice to win, but to win to what end? Everybody in the room got to experience the show and the magic. Some of us walked away with, what a fabulous opportunity. I hope they tour again. We'll definitely go back. And some of us walked away kicking ourselves about if only we'd tried harder. And it has me thinking, where else in life do we miss the little things? Like at the carnival today, they had lots of, as I said, activities, 4-way tug of war, Connect 4, things that were purely for fun, which I loved. And then they had the traditional things like the running races. I remember Casimir saying, are you proud of me? He didn't place. To be honest, he didn't do well in the running race at all. And I was like, of course I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you for showing up, for having a go, for doing your best. And even if you don't do your best, you were there. And I think for many of us, we are our own worst critic, and we're hardest on ourselves. Coulda, shoulda, woulda, done more, been more, had more. And it's like, but to what end? Like, what are we doing the thing for? At the end of the day, the end of the magic show, did it matter whether you come 7th, 33rd, or 146th? At the end of the work week, does it matter if, obviously there are differences depending on what you do. If you're a neurosurgeon, I want you to be on your own game if you're drilling into my head. But for most of us, most of the things that we do in our day in and day out, and we think, oh, this doesn't count, or it doesn't matter, or I could have done more, or I could have handled that better. And we're really, really hard on ourselves. And we forget that we're handling everything in the best way that we can. The other day, I was saying as an offhand joke to my kids that my spirit animal is a sloth because I'm inherently lazy. And my kids just gave me a confused look. And they're like, what do you mean that you're lazy? You take us to school, you pack our lunches, you help us with our homework, you run a business, you do a daily podcast, you go for your walks. Like, you are not lazy. And it's like, how do we, define ourselves? What things do we say, and how we speak to ourselves offhand without even pausing to think, yeah, no, I'm not lazy. And this all ties back to my friends to today's topic, life is a 4-letter word. What are we making of each moment of each day? What are we taking away from it? And yeah, it doesn't always need to be a slog or hard work or exhausting or coulda, shoulda, woulda done better. It can simply be that was fun. Watching my son and his friend try to navigate a peanut bouncy ball type race where one of them couldn't touch the ground. That was the highlight of my day. Watching a magic show that had magicians from all around the world in really amazing at their crafts. And I didn't know which was more fun. It was my kids' first magic show, watching the stage or watching my kids' faces as they lit up in delight because they'd never seen someone be like sawn in half before or anything like that. The burlesque show, being able to share a moment of pure vulnerability with a Zoom room full of people and experience that. Does it matter if I didn't touch every note or do every move that I had choreographed or planned to do? Where in your life being a 4-letter word, are you missing the moment because of a too high a standard that you're holding for yourself? Just my thoughts and ponderings for today. Thank you for tuning in. If this is your first episode, I would love, well, even if it's a multiple episode, if you haven't yet done so, I'd love for you to leave me a review. You can do so on Apple Podcasts. If you're using your iPhone, you can scroll down and there's rating and review. You don't need to write a lot. Some people say to me, oh, I've just got to wait. You could literally write a sentence. Like it's the thought that counts, and you can always update it and add more to it later. If you've already done a review, you could share an episode on any of your socials, say what you enjoy about it, let more people come to the show. I would so appreciate that. And if you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment. And if you're the person who leaves lots of comments in what I assume is Spanish, because I don't speak any language rather than English, shout out to you. I always appreciate your comments. I'm not sure what you're saying to me because I don't speak Spanish, but I love that you turn up, a couple of episodes a week and leave a comment. I so appreciate that. And maybe I could find like a translator or something and pop it in there. But I just want to say, and also too, if you have friends who don't speak English, the advantage of going to YouTube, and for this show or any other, if you did not know this, when you go into YouTube, you can put the subtitles in your own language and it will translate for you. Not sure how accurate the translation is, but there's this one lady I love to listen to. She speaks French, not English. I don't speak French, but I watch her because I love listening to her voice. French is such a musical language. And then I read the subtitles in English and I really, really enjoy that. So watching things on YouTube, I would cringe to think what YouTube Translate does to what I say. But you never know, it could be entertaining. So that's the hot tip for the day. The things you want to watch on YouTube that aren't in your language, put the subtitles on there, choose your language, and it will auto translate for you. It's amazing technology and what it can do. Thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you on the next one. Bye for now.